Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse, and I feel like there's a big secret in the world of solar that nobody knows about yet.
And it's gonna be huge.
And if you watch this episode, you're going to be in on it.
Agrivoltaics, next. So we just traveled out to Western Massachusetts to visit our new friends Jake Marley, the CEO of Hyperion Systems, he's a solar developer, and Joe Zakowski, a third-generation farmer who is now farming more than just vegetables on one of his fields.
Yeah, above Joe's broccoli, as we're about to see for ourselves, are solar panels.
It's called agrivoltaics, and it's basically in its infancy.
As we'll learn, you can make electricity and vegetables at the same time in the same place.
How, you ask?
Well, you know what? Let's find out firsthand from Joe and Jake, the experts who are, as we speak, installing one of New England's first agrivoltaic systems.
Joe, thank you so much for letting us be here in your beautiful farm today. So what are we growing here?
This is broccoli, and it's doing pretty well in this setting.
How can it be doing well? You've got solar panels blocking all the sun from it.
You know, they don't seem to mind it at all. The rows right next to the solar panels actually seem to be doing a little better than the rows in the middle.
So tell me about this. This is new. What is this called again?
Agrivoltaic.
So what's the point? Why bother? Why not just put these solar panels out in a field somewhere away from the plants?
Well, this way you get two benefits. You get the electricity, and you also get a crop of produce.
But I've heard from so many people who say this doesn't work. You can't grow something with all the shade. So like talk to me about the shade. Are we really getting as much shade as people think?
You know, everything seems okay so far in this replication. Our first year, things are fine with the solar panels. It's doing as well as the regular field broccoli. Everything looks good. It seems to be healthy. We've had a lot of wet weather this year and a lot of cloudy weather. And even with that, everything seems fine.
So as a farmer, it seems like this is a great thing, right? You're getting to farm two things. You're getting to farm the broccoli and the sun.
Yep, it's absolutely wonderful.
And so on this field, where's this electricity going to go? How are you going to use it?
Well, it's going to go back into the grid. And from there, it goes to different consumers, people with houses, and just the town, and it'll be good.
So where's this broccoli going, by the way?
This is going to be going to the Springfield school system.
Oh, nice. The kids are going to get to eat broccoli.
As much as they want.
That's great. Now I hear that you have a special way of getting your produce to market.
Well, we have an electric delivery van. I mean, we run 4 regular trucks and trailer, but we also have an electric delivery van. We got a grant from IMDAR, which was very nice of them. And it's been a good van. It's fun to drive. It's comfortable, and it even has refrigeration from Thermo King, and that works perfectly.
Seems like if I was a farmer, I'd be kind of afraid to work with a developer because developers just sound scary. What's it been like working with Jake?
It's been very pleasant. He's been a lot of fun to work with. Very personable. Hyperion has done a good job. We're looking at 2 or 3 other locations to do another few of these settings. Don't tell the other farmers, but I'm happy.
Now, talk to me about how farming takes place. It seems like I got to get a big tractor down here, and it's going to be blocked by these solar panels.
Well, we do our tillage with a 130 horsepower case tractor, and we have no problems fitting in this setting.
Okay, so this is high enough up that the tractor fits underneath?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you still have to pay attention, so you don't hit something. But other than that, the equipment fits. It does at our scale anyways.
Now, what about the area right under the solar panels? Is that wasted?
This year we haven't done much with it, but we can find a better use for it. We'll either put asparagus or maybe blueberries underneath the panels directly. I'm going to do a little homework and see what's worked for other people, but I'd like to put that land to work also.
So this is kind of an experiment, right? I mean, this is the first year, and you're going to get to kind of see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And it's been a tough year. I mean, we've had probably double or triple the normal amount of rain, and things have still done well. And this honestly is not some of the best soils on the farm. It's kind of a sand knoll. And now with the solar panels and some irrigation well points we put in, I think we can do much better here than we ever have done.
Okay, so the developer helped add some value to here, right? He added the wells, some electrical outlets. How does that help you as a farmer?
Well, next year, if it doesn't rain every day like this year, next year we'll put some pumps up there, and we'll put some irrigation here, and make the most of it.
So if this field wasn't doing well because of the weather or whatever, it would be kind of, you'd lose out.
Yep.
With solar, how does that help you?
Well, one of the cash streams still continues, whether or not we lose a crop under it. We've actually had a history of losing a number of crops. We'd plant beets and they'd burn out in August on the knolls. And this way we'll still get a cash flow, which is a good thing. It makes the farm more viable.
Interesting. So it's kind of like an insurance policy. It's something you know is going to come out every day, hopefully.
Yeah, because I really don't have an insurance policy.
Now, what got you interested in doing this with agrivoltaics? Why not just stick to your tried and true, what you've grown up doing?
We have solar panels on a carrot packing facility, and they're nice. I've actually have a $12,000 electric credit.
Nice.
So it seemed like a good thing, and I've been happy with everything. The time to get the projects turned on or connected seems to be unnecessarily long, but other than that, everything else has been fine.
I feel like this is going to be so great because seeing it in person right now just makes me believe it. And I feel like as more and more people get to come and visit you and learn from this, they're going to have their minds changed. Is this going to be available for other farmers and people to check out?
Oh, absolutely. On your Now You Know channel. And also there was an article in the paper the other day. It's worth learning about. And there is a place on farms for this, especially on some of the more marginal soils. And this I think is a good setting.
Do you think as you talk to your farmer friends that more and more farmers are going to be open to doing this and we'll see this happen more and more?
You know, I think so. I know some of the farmers have come out and looked at what we're doing. And I really don't have anything bad to say about it at all. We haven't even hit anything.
Now, when you were telling people about this project coming up where you're going to add solar panels to your farm, were you getting pushback? Were people saying you're crazy, Joe?
Well, at one meeting that they had at the Red Barn in Amherst, people complained, oh, the land is lost forever. You know, this land is millions of years old, and 20 or 22 years is not forever. And my hope is that by the end of the 20 or 22 years, that we'll actually have improved the soil, you know, brought in, you know, added to the organic matter, made improvements in drainage and the soil capacity, and actually have it better than when we found it.
I was hearing that when this was built, they drove these girders into the ground, so there's no concrete there. So it sounds like you can grow right up to the girders.
Yep. Yeah. There was no. When the project leaves,
you just pull it out of the ground.
They'll just pull it out. It'll be no different than a woodchuck hole.
Now, I imagine that when a lot of people were thinking about this project, they were thinking that it would look awful or something, because I've heard there's been some pushback. Now that it's built, to me, it looks great. Do you feel like the feedback you're going to get from people is that it's not what they thought it was going to be?
Only one person said anything, and they were okay about it. They weren't upset. Only one person out of everybody in the town said that they thought it affected their view. But, you know, it's kind of interesting, and arborvitaes were planted at the end, and we're behind a row of trees. It's pretty discreet, and this is actually a great location for it. And, you know, it looks good. It's interesting.
Yeah. Now, I see you've got some testing equipment over there. I guess some outside of the solar and some inside the solar. What's that testing for? What's that doing?
They're just checking how much sunlight is shaded by the panels, and you know if there's any effects on the other weather stations, the amount of rainfall and other things. And I haven't hit any of them with the equipment either.
Now, I hear that you're going to be able to control these panels. These are going to track the sun, but I guess you can override it if you want to. Are you excited about that, or are you just going to let them do what they do?
I think I'll let them do what they do. If their job is to catch the sunlight efficiently, have at it. They're no trouble to me at all. I think it's going to work, and I think it's a good thing.
So you chose broccoli. Is that for a specific reason, or you just thought, you know, based on the soils and stuff, it would do well this year?
I had heard that broccoli is one of the crops that does the best in the solar setting, and I will be doing more homework and finding other crops. I had originally thought about doing chickens, free-range chickens, because we raise the broilers for UMass, but we decided to go with a crop like this.
If there's other farmers out there who are thinking of doing agrivoltaics and they want to kind of learn from you, is there a way, do you blog about this, or is there a way that they can kind of get into your brain and pick your brain on this stuff?
No, I don't blog, and I am social. I mean, they could call me if they want, but that computer stuff, that's for the next generation.
So it sounds like you're going to have to invite us back maybe next year so that we can keep up and keep our viewers up to date on what you're up to.
Yeah, I might do broccoli again next year, and then I'll have to find something, because I usually do a 2-year rotation, and so I could do another year of broccoli. But I could maybe tighten it up, do 3 rows in the same space as I'm doing 2 now.
Oh, wow.
I just happened to do the spacing that I had on another planter, so we just went with it. But we can make it better, and I think we will.
That's great. So it sounds like you're looking forward to many more years working with Jake and, farming the sun and farming your plants.
Yeah, I'm 65 now, so I'll get back to you on that part. But it's been fun and it's been interesting, and I think there is a place on farms for some of this, especially on the more marginal land. I think it's a way to make the most of, and every farm has, a field with ledge or rocks or sand, and there's a place for this on a lot of those fields to make the most of it and make your farm more viable.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe, for inviting us here today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. I've never been on YouTube before.
All right, I'm here with Jake Marley. He's the founder of Hyperion Systems, and we're standing under your wonderful creation here. Thank you so much for inviting us here today.
Thank you for coming out, Zach and Jesse. This is exciting to have you here and discuss agrivoltaics, or dual-use solar.
So a lot of people told me this just doesn't work. It just creates too much shade. We just talked to Joe the farmer. He's very happy. So, and looking at it, I see plenty of shade and then sun.
Right. So what aspect of this is not working? It's tangible, it's real. This is commercial solar with commercial farming. You can see the leaves of the broccoli here are doing as well, if not better, in some of the more shaded conditions compared to the more partial shading in between the solar modules and rows.
So tell me about the construction here, because I thought it was going to be much more involved. It looks pretty simple. So tell me about, what is this girder I see here? What's it going into?
Yeah, so this is a standard I-beam. This is a 20-foot idler post, and it's post driven, so there's really no soil disturbance other than the small area, the footprint of the I-beam itself. And every foot you see above ground, so 10 feet to module horizontal, above us here, that post is buried 10 feet into the ground. So these soils were excellent to work with. I think the biggest rock that we found was about the size of our fist, so next to nothing. Soils were excellent to work with here, and the posts were installed using 2 pieces of equipment. A GRT, which is essentially a fence post driver, bit beefier, given the 20-foot height and weight of these I-beams, and a standard skid steer to get the post to perpendicular, and then the GRT pushed it into the ground.
So Joe was saying that basically when this ever comes out of the ground, it just goes back to being a field.
Yes, that's right. It'll be easy decommission compared to other installations. There's no concrete involved with the individual I-beams here. So it'll be a lot easier actually than the install itself. We won't have to use that GRT. It'll just be the skid steer with a grappler attachment on the front.
Now, is there something magic about the height that you chose?
So that was driven in large part by the Massachusetts SMART program. There's an incentive for this type of solar installation. It's called the agricultural adder. And in order to not go down the waiver request process for the ag adder, it's 10 feet to module horizontal. This is a single axis tracker system. So when we say, exactly, when we say module horizontal, that's at perpendicular. And it will track the sun east to west throughout the day. So more efficient in terms of energy capture per acre, which was really important to us when we're considering impacts on a farm field. How can we make this system as efficient as possible? So single axis tracker was one of them. We went with a more premium module. It's a bifacial 535 watt panel.
Oh wow, that's a lot of wattage.
Considerable output per surface area and capture on that backside as well.
Oh, so bifacial, 2 sides. So basically any reflected light is also going to create solar power.
Yes, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so now I see them all pointing straight up. Is that because that's where the sun is right now?
That's because we're still waiting for the utility to actually interconnect the system.
Damn it.
I know we've been asking for well over 6 months now, and previously we're keeping the utility involved and updated on our construction timeline. So it's been a hard push for 6 months, and it seems like we're getting traction here. But
Wait, so this is just like with my home system where I waited months to get hooked up. Everything was ready to go, but I just needed to wait for somebody on some desk to hit a stamp onto their piece of paper, right? Is that what we're waiting for here?
that's what we're waiting for here, and it's not a
must be
lack of
frustrating.
persistence. Yes, it is. It is frustrating, but it's across the board, and so it's every solar project, every solar developer is dealing with a similar challenge.
But it's so frustrating because it seems like the hard part of this project is to do the work, like to get these installed. You did that, and now, like, so how much of the project were you just waiting for, like, bureaucrats?
I think 9 months, and this has been about a 30-month timeline. So we really could reduce that in a meaningful way if we got some of that lag time cut down. The build, my background is general contracting construction. So the build process, once we finally got to that point, I was so excited. And we started this at the beginning of May with the post-installation. That was very quick, about 2.5 weeks. And then the wiring, all the underground conduit trenching work that we had to do, that was about a month, and modules were about a month as well. So we were out of here, demobilized the site by mid-July. So think about 375 kWAC, 2-acre project, took about 10 or 11 weeks.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so 2.2 acres. And how much is the power of this site right now? How many?
It's 375 kWAC, 445 DC.
Interesting. Okay, and so where does this power go? Does Joe get to use it all? Like where's it going?
This is a community shared solar project, and Joe is a subscriber of the project.
Oh, okay. So is he getting all of it?
He will get about 50% of the power produced. He's an anchor off-taker or anchor tenant of this asset.
And who else gets the rest of it?
We're actively right now looking for subscribers of the project. It will be individuals, ratepayers, potentially businesses in Eversource West territory. So here in Hampshire County, Berkshire County, Franklin County, any one of those ratepayers who's on Eversource West could be a subscriber to this project.
Interesting. If there's someone out there in that area who's interested in signing up, do they go to your website, or how do they?
Yes, yeah, they can reach out to Hyperion Systems. There's a contact us page, and they could reach out to us there if they were interested in becoming a subscriber to this project. I'm not sure exactly where we are in that process right now, but I know we need some more subscribers.
That's great. Okay, so I'm a farmer and I watch this video and I'm like, this sounds awesome. I want to do this too. Is it the kind of thing that the average farmer can just do on their own? I mean, especially if they have the materials and the way to put this in, or maybe they hire a contractor, or is it way more complicated than I think it is?
It is. It's pretty complicated. So there's a couple of different approaches within that, and it depends how complex you want to get as a landowner or farmer. Do you want to own the system yourself? I really think any farmer, I would advise to work with a solar developer so they're not cutting their teeth on this interconnection and development process themselves. But even if it's ownership or leasing the array, there's going to be a lot of involvement from the farmer, the landowner. And this is not compatible. It's not for every farm. Hyperion, we've never suggested that it is, but I think it's a possible solution for a lot of farms, and a way to enhance their revenue diversification. And it really is a farm viability tool. It's a vehicle to diversify that revenue streams, multiple streams of income for a farmer, so that they have consistent revenue, whether it's owning the array or leasing the land, independent of the weather itself. So they can guarantee or count on this income.
Is this a silly way to think of it, that basically a farmer gets to now have 2 crops on one plot of land? Like, I get to have the sun as one of my crops and then broccoli or whatever else?
No, that's quite literally what it is for the farmer. It's providing multiple streams of income for them. Farmers, and I think it's something that gets lost in public perception, they're inherently entrepreneurs, they're business owners, and it is ever increasingly difficult for them to make ends meet. Their profit margins are pretty marginal. So this is a real vehicle to provide farm viability.
I see that you placed these, what you said, 26 feet apart. And I think you went through you had, like, the state has a calculator and some things like that to help you figure all this out, right? Would you build your next system exactly the same way after having built this one?
No, I would not. So our approach, and I think that's a lot different from other developers, is I go in there with my background in general contracting, construction. I meet a landowner, a farmer, and I ask them to teach me about their operation, their business. And that includes a large driver of the spacing, is equipment on hand, what their attachments are, and how compatible the spacing is going to be. And of course, what crops they're growing. So that's really going to drive the spacing. I think 26 feet, that worked based on the equipment that Joe Sikowski Farm already had on hand. We weren't trying to reinvent how his operation occurs. So this was a 26-foot spacing was going to allow for 2 or 4 or 8 row plantings of various crops, and it was also going to allow for his sprayers to get into this field for when the time came for those applications. One design change I think that I would make to this site is reducing the overall height. So they're 10 feet to module horizontal. I think we could really reduce that to 8 feet.
And was 10 because most tractors can fit under 10? Or?
That was because of the state program requirements. So it's in order to avoid the waiver request, 10 feet to module horizontal for the single axis tractor.
So I want to just stop you there. So what is this? Did the state kind of just pick that number as a safe number, like a round number? Because that's what it sounds like to me. Because I know that right now they're horizontal, so that's your maximum height. I know that when we tilt these, they come down a little bit. Was that just to make sure that most tractors would fit?
I think it was a number that I was involved in some of the conversations, not all of them, of course. I think it was a number that was just comfortable. This really is an experiment, and Massachusetts, to give them credit, it's the first state in the U.S. to have an agricultural adder.
And what's an adder again?
It's a further incentive for a solar project. So based on how it's going to perform, that's the revenue stream. So there's a base compensation rate, and then there are potentially multiple adders for each project.
Now, if there weren't adders, if there weren't incentives, is this still worth doing?
It's a lot more challenging. The numbers would not work here in Massachusetts based on the base compensation rates.
How about in other parts of the country that are really sunny, like Arizona and places like that, where you probably couldn't even grow this? Would this actually help a farmer in some ways to actually get the shade they probably need?
Yes, yeah, so absolutely. In the West and Midwest, where there are warmer, more arid climates, that's definitely going to help out. We've found here in Massachusetts, though, last year, 2022, was a severe drought, a level 3 out of 4. A lot of our crops here could have used the benefit of some partial shading conditions. This field was a beet field that suffered about 80% crop loss last year.
Oh, so you're saying if there was solar then with a little bit of extra shading, it could have maybe helped the crop?
That's right. So in the Midwest and West, it certainly, but in wetter climates with more rainfall, it definitely can help out here too.
Because you were mentioning to me that using this calculator from the state, it's just kind of a guideline, but you're actually learning that there's a lot of reflected light they might not be counting.
That's right. Within that shading analysis tool, it does not capture the indirect diffuse sunlight, and that was by design. So it's direct sunlight conditions. That's what that tool is modeling, which we've gone back and forth. There's dialogue about including that, and there are other shading tools that we can use to capture what that diffuse sunlight percentage actually is. So this system, it's the maximum shade, which is the areas directly underneath the modules, is 44% shaded compared to baseline conditions. The overall average shade is 37%. And you can see going up and down the rows that some of the areas with more shade are happier. Yes, I mean, you're getting a lot broader leaf growth, and the broccoli heads themselves are in some areas larger directly, underneath the modules here.
Let's talk about data, because I see that you've got some study equipment going on, both outside of the solar and inside the solar. What are we testing for? What are we learning?
Yeah, so that's in collaboration with UMass Amherst and American Farmland Trust. This project is part of a CETO-funded, UMass-led grant. So what that means is CETO is the Solar Energy Technology Office. They provided funding for research, and UMass Amherst Clean Energy Extension, Dr. Dwayne Breger is the lead principal investigator on this project, and they are looking at a soil scientist, Dr. Sam Cochran, is studying several different areas: soil temperature, ambient temperature, soil moisture, leaf wetness, which I still need to look up what that means, and a couple of other areas of focus: plant physiology, yields, and overall aesthetics as well. So how just to the eye, how the crops are growing, and then also some public perception. How does this type of solar compare to traditional ground mount, taking land out of production?
Now, you're mentioning that this may not be right for every farm. Like I might, as a farmer, think I'll just do it on every single piece of farmland I have. So how do I figure out, if I'm a farmer, where to put it, where not to put it?
Yeah, I think that's where working with a solar developer, especially one that's more agrivoltaic focused, will benefit and help that landowner farmer. Interconnection drives all solar development. So if there's capacity on the grid, if there's proximity to three-phase power, substation distance, all of those criteria determine the system size that is potentially buildable at a specific parcel.
Because you were mentioning to me that this is a certain distance from the hookup, so that factors in, right? And you've got to factor in whether or not you have to put in a road and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's when I met with Joe for the first time in April of 2019. Now, about 3.5 years later, here's the product. We drove to hundreds of his acres. He grows and produces 400 acres here in the Pioneer Valley and visited many different sites. And this was one that worked for us because it was set back from the road. So that was paid for at a premium to allow that, but we didn't want to be right in people's backyards or front yards in this case. And so this site had an existing farm access road that was terrific, minimizing our impact on the farmland. We actually improved that as one of the value adds. You're out here on a pretty wet day. We received a bunch of rain yesterday. That access road, it would have been passable, but now it was no problem coming out here. The other reasons that this site was more or higher priority or ranking was because you heard Joe mention marginal soils. And when he's saying marginal soils, that's in comparison to his overall portfolio. On the Massachusetts Mapper, which is a software tool that we use, this is farmland of unique importance. So it meets a criteria as part of that ASTGU application. And so it's still very productive soils, but given Joe's portfolio of some very productive parcels, it's more marginal. And so that was also one of the reasons. This was never going to go on his most productive field. That was one of the reasons we selected this site.
I can see why, as a farmer, I would need to work with a solar developer, because you just use a bunch of acronyms that I probably don't understand as a farmer. And you're working with a lot of agencies in the state, right? And you're working with the utility. And that sounds like it's a big part of your job.
Yes, it is. And so that's getting into the ownership versus leasing land model. Or part of the decision process. What I tell farmers or potential clients is it's really a part-time job, especially if you're going to own this system. There's O&M considerations, there's managing subscribers, which is a bit of O&M, but managing subscribers of offtake if it's going to be a community shared project, especially once we're talking at scale. There's Joe, we'll use a lot of this power. I mean, he does a ton of processing, as you heard him say. So he has a lot of behind the meter use, but still this is going to produce about 2 times what he uses.
So if I'm in Massachusetts right now and I'm a farmer and I'm thinking this would be great, but that sounds really complicated, how could I reach out to you and maybe make you my solar developer?
Yeah, thank you. That'd be great. So our website is the best way to reach out. We have a contact page on there, and that goes right into my mailbox and others at Hyperion. So we're great.
I want to talk about data for a second. So this farm we're not plugged in yet, unfortunately, which is so frustrating, but we will be soon. And you're going to start to get really good data on the plants, but also on the electricity, production. What are you going to hope to learn from all that?
Yeah, how can we make this more efficient? I think in terms of the crop production, that's where most of the focus will be for data collection. But of course, with the energy production, how can we make this more efficient and capture more of that energy? As I mentioned, these are bifacial modules. One traditional farming practice to mitigate weeds is to put down some plastic. So black plastic is typically used, but what if we use a white plastic to increase the energy output because of the bifacials, the collectors on the backside of these panels? And so that's something, the white plastic is usually comes at a premium, but we could pencil out and see what those numbers actually look like.
Oh, that's cool. And it looks like, because so you told me you have 36 different tracking systems here, different motors, so they can actually track individually. So you could actually do some experiments like black plastic here, white plastic there, and see like which does better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
That's cool data.
Yes, yeah, it totally is. And on that point of having the different motors, there's potential chance for greater outages with the motors, but if there is one outage,
It
the
doesn't
rest
hold
of
up
the
the whole
system,
system.
yes, is still operating. So that was part of our design criteria when we were talking with different vendors. We ultimately went with a Solar Flex Rack S-Series product. And so far, it's been great to work with. One of the design choices that we went forward with were these cab hangers, and you can catch them a little bit underneath, and that allowed for really tight wire management. There were different options that we could have gone with, scrim netting on the back of the panels, or different, even just plastic zip ties to hold the wiring. But this was something that just made next to no slack in the system.
I really like that you drove these piers down straight, so there's no concrete down there. There's nothing to keep plants from growing. And as Joe was saying, he can plant a perennial right along these lines. So what I'm looking at as a layperson is, I thought I was going to come here and see like half the land was gone to planting, but it's all here available to planting. And it might turn out with the data will show us that it might be actually more crop yield.
That's right. That's right. And so there's less data done here in Massachusetts. University of Arizona, as you were mentioning, has done more of that. But different growing conditions, they're able to start growing carrots in August compared to traditionally in October. So they're getting multiple yields from the same site because of the shade provided. And a drier year here in Massachusetts, we could probably expect something along those lines. Not just a one-to-one, but a potentially higher yield. And of course, you're getting the revenue and the harvest of the sun. Hyperion's approach, Hyperion's been at this since 2010, and the original mantra or ethos was food first, then energy. How do we prioritize this for agricultural production? And row spacing, height, those are all design criteria that optimize for farming.
And you started this company with your dad, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. He was really the pioneer in this in 2009, 2010, looking at that and started really the first agrivoltaic project right here in South Deerfield. In 2010, that was cattle grazing underneath, which even still get some pushback of that's not going to work or that's a hoax, but it's real. I can tell you, we're here now. That site in South Deerfield is part of the UMass Cafe, the Center for Ag, Food and Environment. Dr. Stephen Herbert is the agronomist at that site, and he's been growing crops since 2016. So about 7 or 8 years now of crop production analysis, and it does work. And in those drier years, it's undeniable. The variable group, the group of crops that's receiving partial shading conditions, is performing better, has higher yields than the control group in full sunlight.
Talk to me about batteries, because I'm a battery guy. I'd love to see batteries everywhere. Is it possible in the future that a field like this, system like this, could get hooked up to batteries and use that as well?
Yes, yeah, it definitely could. That was something that we considered, and we decided to not go in that direction because this is a real sort of commercial pilot project that we wanted to start out with. But we could have had a battery pad here, and it would have been a part of this array. What I would like to see in working with other farming clients, because this is not at Joe's main operation facility, is to put the batteries where he uses the power. So in case the grid ever did go down, he still had access to that backup power. If the battery storage, the ESS, were out here, it's still grid tied and on this side of the meter, so he wouldn't be able to take advantage of that. But it's something that is incentivized here in Massachusetts. The battery costs, we continue to see them come down and become more economically viable for projects.
Can people go to your website to learn more about the projects you're putting in and the data you're collecting?
Yes, yeah, they definitely can. We have a research page and a projects page as well, so they can see the work that's been done there.
And what do you have for upcoming projects? I hear you've got other things in the works.
Yeah, we've started really scaling now with this proof of concept here. Joe and I are looking at 2 other sites, 2 500 kW AC, so a megawatt total. Hyperion submitted about 8 megawatts AC worth of applications just in the last 4 weeks. So we're really going for it, and those will 7.5 AC will be agrivoltaic.
So getting into the nuts and bolts of this, I don't know how much you can share with me, but does it make enough money? How long does it take to pay back for itself? Because it looks like you had to pay a lot for these panels and all that.
Yeah, that all came at a premium, and it's added cost, right? Not just upfront in the labor and material, but long-term O&M. This is commercial farming, so there's greater concern, impact, and potential damages to the array. The incentive really covered that and made this financially feasible. Our break-even point will be within probably reduced years compared to a traditional ground mount. So those, you're looking at about an 7 to 8 year payback. This will probably be more like 6-year payback.
Wait a minute. So a quicker payback for something that's not as efficient, in the sense that I could fit more panels if I was just doing a ground mount system. But you're going to get a faster payback, I assume, because there's more incentives from the state.
Yes, yeah, because of that adder that's included with this. There's also an adder for the single axis tracker that a fixed tilt system would not capture as well.
That's so interesting. And so, again, going back to the fact that as a developer, I picture developers as being, mainly contractors doing most of the building. There's less building that you have to do here, and more, it seems like, working through the whole state process and the whole utility process. What interests me is when I've heard about people doing residential solar, they have all of this delay from the utility. It doesn't seem like there's much incentive for them to be fast. What was your experience with your utility?
That was the same here. It was delays that were never really explained, unanswered emails, phone calls. That was consistent throughout. There was one system study that we almost got placed in, we avoided here, and that's a delay tactic used by utilities here in Massachusetts, other states as well.
But aren't they told they have to get to a certain percentage? Like, doesn't the state kind of tell them they have goals?
Yes, yeah, there are utility goals and requirements, and
so don't they want to reach those goals?
I would think so, yes, and that's not an area that I'm an expert within, but yes.
I guess it's a change to what they normally do, and anytime you ask for a big company to do a change, they're probably going to slow way down.
That's right. This is a change to their bottom line, impacts their revenue, and change their operations. So it's another power generating site that they have to keep an eye on and maintain.
That's so great. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for inviting us to the site, Jake. I've had a really fun time checking it out.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you for coming by, and thank you for promoting Agrivoltaics. It really will help the overall.
Thank you so much to Joe and Jake for inviting us to learn and share their agrivoltaic project with everybody.
What excited us about this project is that it's one of the first commercial systems in the country.
Yeah, this isn't just academic, although they are collecting a lot of important data. It's real world. It's helping farmers stay profitable and proving that solar can go on more than just roofs and over parking lots. But you, the viewer, have a job to do. If you made it this far, then you are definitely interested in agrivoltaics, and so we need your help to spread the word.
Share this video with everyone you know who can help move this along.
Farmers, developers, people in government, educators, heck, even gardeners.
That's right, even homeowners can use agrivoltaics.
It's just so great to see agrivoltaics, something that we've been covering on Tesla Time News for years, actually up and running and proving itself in the real world.
If this is the kind of content that you like, then please consider supporting the work that we do by joining our Patreon. We have lots of perks.
And you can start with just $1 a month.
Thank you so much for watching.
Now you know.